and ready.
Ah, beautiful. Great. It's nice to be sharing this morning with you all. Yogananda noted that there are two kinds of people in this world. Look around and you see many, 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 many more variations on the theme. But he said there are only really, functionally, two kinds of people in the world. Those who are seeking God and those who aren't. Swami used to say that our lives, free will is important. Free will is essential. Free will is the nature of the universe. But that the amount of free will we actually have is fairly limited in any given life. That everything that happens really is tied to karma, tied to thoughts and actions that we've put out before. Look in the mirror and, probably all of us realize that no matter what we do in this life, we will never become Muhammad Ali or, a 7-foot-tall NBA player. Even if we would choose it, we're just not going to get there. There are a million things that this life doesn't make available to us by the time we've actually incarnated. In fact, he said, so fixed is our karma, so compelling are the forces that we've put in motion already, that our lives pretty much are charted already. And that, he said, it's like being on a train, and your choice is to go to the back of the train or the front of the train. And again, to quote Yogananda, he said, we are either drawn forward in growth. Every one of us is compelled to grow. Every one of us is compelled to change. You can have change without growth, but you can't have growth without change. Every one of us is compelled from inside ourselves to reach for something more, to become something more. And everything, that's what gets us up in the morning. It's what awakens us in the morning, is that yearning to be active in some way that increases our fulfillment. And he said you can either be drawn forward by love in that process, or you can be kicked from behind by your karma. And those are the two brackets. We either are so engaged in our quest for love that we don't even notice our karma. It doesn't have any power over us. Or we kind of start to get comfortable and we lollygag along the way. We kind of drift back toward the back of the car. And then all of a sudden we find all kinds of unpleasantnesses haunting us. And we wonder what the heck happened, right? And we kind of feel it kicking us to do something. We need just a few things in life. We need to know what the fulfillment of life can look like, don't we? Somebody once said, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And another friend, she said she described her life before the path. She said she felt like a hockey puck. She'd just be there on the ice, just kind of going back and forth, and things were all very familiar, and all of a sudden something would come along and swat her. And she'd just go skimming across the ice and land someplace else, and somebody else would be batted around over here, and pretty soon, and just circumstance would just come and just dramatically change, but that it was random and it was really meaningless. The masters come and they tell us. This is a reading. If you don't have a copy of Whispers from Eternity, I would highly encourage you to get one. This is a scripture. Yogananda said in part he was born to bring this to life. It is a book of prayer demands and poems. He said we shouldn't pray like beggars, we should pray like children, and we should go to the Divine Mother and Father and demand our birthright. And this is a poem that most of you are familiar with. This was written after an experience that Yogananda had of being in the divine presence. It's called Samadhi. Vanished the veils of light and shade, lifted every vapor of sorrow, sailed away all dawns of fleeting joy, gone the dim sensory mirage, love, hate, health, disease, life, death. Perished these false shadows on the screen of duality. They're false. Waves of laughter, scyllas of sarcasm, melancholic whirlpools melting in a vast sea of bliss. The storm of Maya stilled by magic wand of intuition deep. The universe forgotten dream subconsciously lurks, ready to invade my newly wakened memory divine. You know, the Indians, India, they talk about getting into the Ganges. And all your sins, all of your karma, everything is washed away. But then when you get out, it's all lurking on the shore to jump back on. That's what he's talking about here, you know? The universe, forgotten dream, it's all washing away. Subconsciously lurks, ready to invade my newly wakened memory divine. He says, I live without the cosmic shadow, but it is not bereft of me. As the sea exists without the waves, but they breathe not without the sea. Our reality is eternal. It's way beyond the dreams and the ups and downs and complexities of this life. It's way beyond the superficial, alternating currents of happiness and sadness, of good and bad. And he goes on, and it goes on for quite a while. It's beautiful, it's inspiring, it's compelling. But he ends, with spotless is my mental sky, below, ahead, and high above. Eternity and I, one united ray. A tiny bubble of laughter, I am become the sea of mirth itself. The ocean of bliss, the ocean of joy and mirth is our home, is our reality. That's what we're trying to reclaim. We all want happiness, we all want joy, but we want it ever fresh, ever new, ever alive and dynamic. When we think of God, when I think of God, when I think of God the way God has been presented to me in this world for the most part, and when I think of God just as thinking of God, it just goes flat and gray. It just is bleak. Why would I ever want to think of God? And then you have Master Yogananda and you have Swami Kriyananda and all the saints, and they paint this picture that is so filled with technicolor that our normal existence looks gray and blasé. And that's what they're trying to tell us, that in seeking God, in turning toward God, that's when it gets interesting, that's when it gets alive. So we need to know what it looks like. Then we need to know that it's worth going there, and that's a part of what they tell us and they share with us. Swami wrote 400 pieces of music, all different, all shades of God's presence. Yogananda brought music. They bring stories. They bring fascination. It's so wonderful. And then we need to know, the next thing we need to know is that it's possible. And Yogananda tells of a dream where he was in a dusty marketplace. And everybody was just getting through the days. Their eyes were downcast, and it was dusty and hot and just miserable. And he looked up in this dream, and he saw a far mountain top, and it was beautiful, and it was lush, and there were gardens on the side of it. And he thought, oh, but it's so far away. It's so far away, I'll never make it. I should just... And he turned his eyes back down, and he just started to go back through the motions of life with everybody else and just shuffling along through the dusty marketplace. And then he looked back up, and it was so beautiful. It was so beckoning. And he thought, well, I may not make it, but at least I can try. And I'll just take whatever steps I can. And he just took. And he just, one step after the other, he left the marketplace and moved gradually up to the top. And that's what it's like. That's what it's like, is just step by step. We need to keep in mind the goal. There's something there to reach. But all along the way, all it is just the next step. And it'll be a fascinating and endlessly varied journey. But anytime we stop short of the goal, it will become, even though it's fascinating for the moment, it will become far too small and boring, and our hearts will call us onward because it's in infinity. I, a tiny bubble of laughter, and become the sea of mirth itself. That's the calling. And anything short of that will be dissatisfying, will not be enough. And then we need to know how to get there. And so they bring us the teachings. They bring us the path of Kriya Yoga. They say it's really simple. There's a million things you can do. Everything that you do that's good, everything that you do, helping somebody across the street, being kind, getting up in the morning in service, not yelling at your kids. That was for you, India. All the little things that we can do matter. They help us along the way. But there are central things. You can. I remember being young on the path, and I was very sincere. I am very sincere, but I was very sincere, and God knew it. And He felt the yearning of my heart, and He put me through an extraordinary test. And it was, my normal capacity for stretching and growing and giving, renouncing the things that were familiar and that I could recognize as being meaningful, was limited. And what He asked of me was enormous from where I sat. And I had a superconscious dream. It compelled me into a superconscious state, and my sleep state was alert. And all night long, I was in this kind of suspended animation well above this reality. And at one point, I felt that if I cooperated with what was being asked, I could just feel myself expanding into the presence of God. I don't know how else to say it. But I could feel that light just, and this freedom and joy. And it was so rich and lovely. And it was so foreign to my capacity that I found myself turning back to a lower state of a commitment to a lower state of reality. And I was justified in that other state. It was completely self-justified. If you even look at the scriptures, the place I landed was exactly right. I was dharmically placed, and I was completely missing the point. And I felt myself commit. No! And the light went out. The opportunity was gone in that one moment of commitment. And since then, it was like, she said, you want to go to the top? Here's an elevator ride. And I went, no way I'm getting on that darn elevator. And then the elevator doors closed and it went away. And I looked at myself and went, dang. There was a trip to the very top of everything I've been seeking. And then I looked back up at the mountaintop, and I looked back where I was, and I realized I'm going to have to walk. And really, in 30 years, because it's been nearly 30 years since that happened, I've had to work step by step by step all along the way to try and reclaim even portions of what was offered in that one moment. God would open the doors of heaven itself for us, for our sincerity, and we turn away time and time and time again for such petty things. Oh, my job. Oh, my dog. Oh, my bicycle, my chance. This is the job I've always wanted. This is the date, or just you name it. And the compelling ones are, of course, drugs and alcohol, intoxicants. But by the time you've reached Ananda, probably that isn't the most compelling thing. And then there's fame and fortune. And then there's the desire for divine love to be expressed in human love. And we turn away time and time and time again, working with the surface details. No, I know better. I know what's right. A little while later, still tied to this, because it had to do with that. There were so many layers of that offering. But one of them was just about how to be a parent, how to be dharmic. It had to do with Erica was just here. Some of these things. Our daughter was just here. It's Gangamata's stepdaughter and my blood relative. And when the karma happened, she was just 3 years old. It was very much a question: how do you parent dharmically under these circumstances? And we were living in the village. The whole family was in separate places, and I saw Erica periodically, but not very often. And I was a builder. That was how I was able to stay in the village and pay the bills and stuff. And all of the building work in the community dried up. It's just gone. And we didn't certainly have any buffer. So I thought, well, what am I going to do? And the man who was leading the Builders Guild, the partnership that we had, he found a job over in Santa Cruz, 5 hours away. And I thought, 5 hours away? How I can barely parent at all, even in the same community. How can I possibly do this? But it was the only thing, and I really meditated deeply. I said, Lord, Master, what is it? What is it that you want in this? What would you have me agree to? What would you have me do? And I felt that he wanted me to take the job. It was building a temple for the Pure Land Partnership, Bhagavan Nomi's group. And I said, okay, well. So I went to this little 3-year-old and I sat down and I said, honey, I'm not going to be around much for a while. How do you tell a 3-year-old just daddy's going away? Well, we did the best. It was interesting. We packed up all our tools. It was a work party. We got a house 2 blocks from the beach in Capitola. And it was I think 7 of us went down there to do this contract. And all we had was our sleeping bags, our meditation gear, our spiritual books, and our plans and tools. That was it. We were just going to land and meditate and work. Within a week of being down there, her mother, for completely independent and personal reasons, landed in Atherton, an hour away. And we had one of the greatest periods of our lives together, Erica and I. I would pick her up on weekends and I'd bring her down and we'd go to the beach. And we just, it was extraordinary. Had I not said yes, she would have been 3.5, 4 hours away. But there she was, an hour away, and it's just filled. We were even talking about it again this morning. I moved back at the end of the 4 or 5 months of building, and within 2 weeks, she was back at the village again, for reasons completely independent of what was happening. You don't know. We don't know. We don't know how it works when we say yes to God. And you can't say yes halfway. You either say yes or you don't say yes. You either walk to the front of the train or you walk to the back. We don't know when we step up and meet our Dharma what's possible and what God will do. But the masters tell us, seek God first and everything else comes. They take care of everything else. They take care of every single other thing. But we can't be half-hearted. We can't be lukewarm. I was in the same period of time, a little while after that, moved down to Palo Alto to help. Again, I felt the call. Now I'm 3.5 hours away, really. But I figured out, respond to God, and he'll take care of all the details. You serve, you give. So we're down there, and big earthquake happens down in the Bay Area, 1989. And I went down to the triage center. I'd been trained as an EMT, emergency medical technician, an ambulance guy. And I went down to the triage center after we stabilized our own community. And it was striking because and I've talked about this, but it's so vivid in my mind, my mind's eye, and in my heart. There were people there who were there because of the trauma of the earthquake, and there were people who were beat up physically pretty badly and were in shock. There were people who had virtually nothing wrong with them and they were fine. But I saw something else that was really striking. I saw people who had virtually nothing wrong with them, who were completely blown out by the event that had just happened. And some of them had little crosses on. Some of them were, I'm sure, very sincere in their relationship to Christ and their relationship to God. But it was on the surface. And there were other people who were really badly beat up, who were really badly physically hurt, that were comforting others, that were blessing others, that were telling jokes, that were holding light in the midst of this really somewhat terrifying circumstance. It's not enough. It's just not enough to believe and to want and to try and associate at a distance. We have to do things. And the masters came. Yogananda said, these are things you can do that will give you the experience of God's presence, that will put you in proximity with the grace of God. He said concentration, Hong Sa, energization, building energy, feeling that flow of energy through our center. He said Om technique, communion with the cosmic sound and light. It's the culmination of all yoga is in Om. And then Kriya, to get rid of all the tendencies, all the samskars, all those things that pull us back. I've told this story before, but it's again so vivid. There was a woman, she was a spiritual director here in Portland back in the early, mid-90s. And very, very saintly woman. And in fact, probably died liberated or very close. But at one point, and she got cancer. And she was in a state where she was leaving her body as an effect of the cancer. And she was going out and she saw the light. The reason we know this is because it didn't stick, okay? And we're going to tell you about that. But she said she saw the light, she was going into it, she was completely merging into the divine light, and she remembered she had shoes on layaway. Honest to God, that's it. And she found herself back in the hospital bed. The desires of the heart, those clinging yearnings for even the smallest thing are what pull us back. Kriya burns those things up. Kriya makes the form go away and gives us back our energy, gives us back our freedom. He said those 4 things plus devotion, they work like spiritual mathematics. They will set you free in God's light. They will give you God. So we have to know how to do it. And then we have to have support and friendship all along the way. We have to have an environment that helps us remember and friends that share the journey with us. And then so they give us Ananda. They give us this beautiful Sangha and this lovely church and community to live in and friends to share the journey with. They give us kirtans on the weekend and Sunday services. They give us service days so we can just be, for no good reason at all, come together and just make something beautiful happen. They give us music. They give us all of these things to help us remember to go to the front of the train that we're on, to reach for the light. There's only 2 kinds of people in the world. Those who are reaching for the light and find themselves filled with the Spirit and presence of God and the adventure and the beauty and all the subtle flavors. And those who turn away and just find themselves kicked progressively. Yogananda reminded us that this world, for those who don't know how to live in it, is a terrible place that will tear you limb from limb. But for those who know how to live in the presence of God, it's an ever-increasing renunciation of smaller and lesser things into the joy of His presence. Let's end with this reading from Whispers from Eternity. Sit up straight. And then what I'd like to do, we're going to end with that, and then we're going to have a special piece of music. And the special piece of music has been choreographed. It's from another saint who's very close. Yogananda said that St. Francis was his patron saint. He lived in joy. He lived in music. He lived in service. He lived in simplicity. And you don't have to think about it. When you hear this music, it will set you free. And then we'll have a flute piece to follow. So, I was made for the alone. I was made for dropping flowers of devotion gently at thy feet on the altar of the morning. My hands were made to serve thee willingly, to remain folded in adoration, waiting for thy coming, and when thou comest, to bathe thy feet with my tears. My voice was made to sing thy glory. My feet were made to seek thy temples everywhere. My eyes were made a chalice to hold thy burning love and the wisdom falling from thy nature's hands. My ears were made to catch the music of thy footsteps echoing through the halls of space. Isn't that beautiful? To catch the music of thy footsteps echoing through the halls of space, and to hear thy divine melodies flowing through all heart tracts of devotion. My lips were made to breathe forth thy praises and thine intoxicating inspirations. My love was made to throw incandescent searchlight flames, to find thee hidden in the forest of my desires. My heart was made to respond to thy call alone, and my soul was made to be the channel through which thy love might flow uninterruptedly into all truth-thirsty souls. Please.
Infirm, his devotees went looking for him and he wasn't there. And they found him out standing by a tree filled with bliss, singing to God. And when they asked, what's going on, here's what he said.
Sister Clara, cried St. Francis, and you, my brothers, hear the song that God has given me in my time of trial. It is for the greater glory of God and as a consolation for all men. Thus the Canticle of Creatures came to be written, the Canticle delle Creature. This was, it is said, the first poem in the Italian language. Most high, all-powerful, all-good Lord, all praise is yours. All glory, all honor, and all blessings. To you alone, most high, do they belong, and no mortal lips are worthy to pronounce your name.
Altissimo, omnipotente, bon Signore, tue son le laude, la gloria et l'onore, et ogni benedizione, et ogni benedizione a te solo sei confano et nullo homo e degno de nominarte.
Praised be you, my Lord, with all your creatures, especially Sir Brother Sun, who is the day through whom you give us light, and he is beautiful and radiant with great splendor. Of you, Most High, he bears the likeness.
Laudato sia Dio mio Signore, cum tutte le tue creature, specialmente messer lo frate sole, la quale giorna et illumina nui per lui, et ello è bello, et radiante cum grande splendore de te, Signore, porta significazione.
Praised be you, my Lord, through our sister, Mother Earth, who sustains and governs us, producing varied fruits with colored flowers and herbs.
Laudato sia mio Signore, per nostra Madre Terra, la quale ne sostenta, et governa et produce diversi frutti, et colorati fiori, et herbe.
Praise and bless my Lord, and give him thanks, and serve him with great humility.
Laudato et benedicite mio Signore, et regratiate, et servite a lui cum grande humilitate, cum grande humilitate.